Hey everyone, what's up? Today I'm going to be covering a case that I wasn't originally planning on covering so soon in my lineup, but over the past few weeks there's been some new developments with the case, so I figured what a better time than now. So let's go ahead and get started. This is a case out of Bardstown, Kentucky. Bardstown is a small town. It is a beautiful town. As a matter of fact, in 2012, Bardstown was named the most beautiful small town of America. From an outside perspective, it seems to be the perfect hometown America. But behind its beauty, the town holds dark secrets and grief that nobody seems to have the answers to. If you visit Bardstown, take a closer look and you'll see roadways, neighborhoods, businesses lined up with signs looking for answers and demanding justice. There seems to be a dark cloud over Bardstown, Kentucky that they just can't seem to shake. I'm going to start the story by talking about Crystal Rogers. Crystal was a gorgeous mother of 5 who was 35 years old at the time of her disappearance. Her family described her as being a caring, doting mother who always put her kids first, did whatever she needed to do to make sure that those kids were taken care of, even working 2 jobs at the same time to make sure that they had everything that they needed. They also said that she was shy, laid back, and very down to earth. In addition to being a mom, she was also a friend to many, and making friends just seemed like it came natural to Crystal despite being shy. Crystal had a boyfriend, 5 kids, and from all outward perspective, it seemed like she had it all. Did she just walk away from her seemingly perfect life? Or was there more going on behind closed doors that most didn't know about? Fireworks were heard in the distance as families across the small town celebrated 4th of July weekend. It was July 3rd, 2015, when Sherry Ballard, Crystal's mom, received a text from her granddaughter, Callie. Callie was one of Crystal's 5 kids, and she was asking her grandma if she had heard from her mom. At that point, Sherry hadn't talked to Crystal all day, so she told her no, but that she would reach out to Crystal and let her know Callie was looking for her. Sherry shoots Crystal a text to let her know that her daughter's trying to get in contact with her and went about her day. She never ended up hearing anything back from Crystal, but she didn't really look into it too much. That is, until later that evening, Callie texted Sherry again and said, "Hey, I still haven't heard from my mom. Have you talked to her yet?" Sherry said, "No, your mom never texted you or called you," and that's when Callie said, "No." Thinking this is pretty out of the norm for Crystal not to be in contact with her kids, Sherry calls Crystal. Crystal doesn't answer the phone, so she leaves a voicemail. Sherry starts calling around to see if anybody had talked to or was with or had seen Crystal. She got the same answer every time. No, nobody had seen or heard from Crystal. Sherry knew that if she was trying to reach Crystal and an entire day had passed and Crystal hadn't gotten back with her or her daughter, that something was wrong. That was not like Crystal, and it was definitely not like Crystal to just not respond to her daughter. Sherry knew in her gut that something was going on, and it wasn't good. After a weekend of no contact, Brooke Ballard, which is Crystal's sister, calls Sherry and says, "Hey, I still can't get in touch with Crystal." It was in that moment that Sherry describes falling apart in her living room. The family was close. Not only was the family close, but Sherry and Crystal shared a bond. They were really close. And I know mothers and daughters usually have a bond, but this was more than that. They were best friends. They talked every single day. Sherry's motherly instinct just knew. As soon as Sherry and her husband Tommy, which is Crystal's dad, became aware that Crystal was missing and nobody could get in contact with her, Tommy took immediate action. He put his entire life on hold so that he could find answers and search for Crystal or her whereabouts or her last known location. He never gave up. I'm a parent, and I know most parents out there would like to think that if their child were to go missing, that you would stop at nothing until you found your child. But Tommy took that to an entirely different level. He was relentless. He was diligent. He was determined. He wasn't going to stop until he got the answers of where his daughter was. July 5th, 2015, Sherry and Tommy reported Crystal missing. They arrive at the police station to file the missing person report. Alongside them was Casey, which is Crystal's brother. When they were at the police station, they received a text message from Crystal's ex-husband's son. He told them that he was driving down the Bluegrass Parkway, or the BG as the locals call it, and he thought he had spotted Crystal's car parked alongside in the emergency lane. As soon as Tommy catches wind that there's a possibility of Crystal's car being spotted, he takes immediate action. He tells Casey, let's ride down there and see if this actually is Crystal's car. They load up in the car and start heading down Bluegrass Parkway to see if they can spot Crystal's car. As soon as they rounded the curve, right at mile marker 14, that's when they knew. As soon as they saw it, they knew that was Crystal's car. They pulled up behind Crystal's car to confirm what they had already known, and they immediately called police and requested that someone come out there to take a report. While they were waiting for an officer to arrive on scene, Tommy and Casey peek into Crystal's passenger side window, and that's when they see Crystal's phone, they see Crystal's purse, and they see that Crystal's keys are in the ignition of the car. It was all just sitting there in plain sight, like she was just there. They also noticed that the back passenger tire was low on air, but it wasn't completely flat. Casey said it was entirely still drivable, and it didn't make sense to him that Crystal would have pulled over for this reason. He said that as a matter of fact, Crystal had had flat tires in the past, and she was so paranoid about stopping anywhere in an unsafe place, like on the side of a highway, that she drove on the flat tire, tearing up the rim until she got to a safe location where she could take care of it. That left them with even more questions as to why Crystal's car would just be sitting on the side of a highway. Another thing that Casey immediately noticed when he was looking in Crystal's car was the driver's seat position. He said that when Crystal drove, she was notorious for having the seat scooted up as far as it would go, but the back of the seat, she would lean back. When he looked at the seat now, the seat was pushed forward, but the back of the seat was sitting completely upright, almost to the point of it leaning forward. He said that's when he believed Crystal was never driving that car, and that she was definitely not the one who left it right there. After police arrive on scene, they take note of Crystal's car and they disappear off into the woods off of the side of the highway for about 10 minutes. Casey and Tommy are waiting right there to see if they can find anything that would indicate Crystal was around in the area, but they came back empty-handed. It didn't take long for media to pick up on Crystal's disappearance, and the community immediately jumped into action. Crystal's family, alongside police and the community, started combing the area around the bluegrass to see if they could find any indication that Crystal was around. Tommy arranged searches for months in all different areas, trying to pinpoint down where Crystal could possibly be. They went out in the heat, in the snow, in the rain. They didn't care what it was like outside. They were so determined to find Crystal. They weren't going to stop until they brought Crystal home. It was painful for them to go back home knowing that Crystal was potentially still out there somewhere. Tommy and the rest of the Ballard family felt like they kind of had to pick up the pieces where the Nelson County Sheriff's Department fell short. They didn't feel like the department was doing an adequate job or taking this serious enough to find the answers that they needed. After police had discovered that they had Crystal's car, they took it in possession and only found one fingerprint and gave the car back to the family in not very much time. When Crystal's parents got the car back, it appeared like there was junk everywhere in the car. There were kids' shoes and trash, and it didn't seem like they had really touched anything. Not only that, but anytime the family would try to get answers from the Nelson County Sheriff's Department, it felt like they were being extremely tight-lipped about anything, if they even had anything, as to what was going on or what they had figured out. They really felt like they were kept in the dark. That only revved up Tommy even more. He had mapped out every single possibility as to what could have happened to Crystal. If Tommy wasn't out physically searching for Crystal, he was on the internet, he was making phone calls, he was doing anything he could to lead him back to her. Fall of 2016, it had been over a year since anybody had seen or heard from Crystal. Tommy had felt like he had really gained momentum in the search for her. He was really vocal about the fact that he felt like he was coming to a breaking point in the case. Everybody knew that he was out searching and he wasn't going to quit. If you can imagine one of those big police boards with the map and the string and the push pins and the pictures, that's basically what he had. He also had binders that were filled with very detailed notes. He wrote down every lead, every tip, everything that anybody said. He wrote it down with a date and a name. He had videotapes from surveillance he had gone out and gotten himself. He had interviews that he had gone and taken of people that had seen Crystal or her car the days leading up to her disappearance. He had maps, he had addresses, you name it, he had it. And he kept it all in a safe place in his house that nobody in the Ballard family told anybody from the outside about. Unsurprisingly, the Ballard family had a mistrust from their local police department, and that's why he didn't want to turn over any of the information he had gathered to them in regards to Crystal's case. The closer Tommy felt that he was coming to this breaking point, the more vocal he became. The more determined he became, the braver he became. He wasn't afraid of whoever had done this to Crystal. He felt like he was closer than ever to finding the answer that they were all so desperate to have. That leads us to November 19th, 2016. Tommy and Trenton, which is one of Crystal's sons, had plans to go hunting on their family farm. This is something that the family did every single year at the same place for over a decade. Since it's such a small town, it seemed like everybody in the community just kind of knew that that was their property, and they always went hunting there, the first part of the season or on these days and these times. The farm was large enough to be split into two sections, so there was a front part and there was a back part. It was super early in the morning and it was pitch black, and Tommy and Trenton took the back part of the farm to hunt. Casey and his son were also out there hunting at the same time, but they took the front part of the farm. Casey and his son sat in his truck listening to the radio before they went out into the stands. It's pitch black, it's pretty quiet outside, and that's when Casey heard it. It was the loud echoing of a gunshot. Seconds later, Sherry's phone rang. She was back at home in bed sleeping. She picks up the phone and answers it. It was Trenton, and he told Sherry that his grandfather had been shot. Right after Trenton called Sherry to let her know what had happened, he immediately called his Uncle Casey. In hysterics, he's trying to tell Casey what he thought had just happened. Casey told him to stay right there, not to move, and that he was going to jump in his truck and drive to the back of the farm. At the same time, Sherry is bolting out the door to get to the farm and see what's going on. She arrives at the farm to the location where she knew that they had been hunting, and that's when she saw him. Tommy was laying on the ground, on his back, with his eyes wide open. She was in disbelief. She bent down and she leaned into him. She shook him, and it seemed like he was already gone. She shook him again, and she said that his nose started bleeding, and at that moment is when she was pulled off of him. At just 54 years old, Tommy Ballard had been shot and killed on his own family farm, right in front of his grandson. Who would want to kill Tommy? Since it seemed like it was no secret that that's where he went hunting, it really led them in no specific direction as to who could have done this. Police originally had thought this could have been a hunting accident, but when they realized that it was definitely not a hunting accident, they now had two open investigations for the same family. After Tommy was shot and police had arrived on scene, it seemed like they were focusing on one particular area that was a wooded spot that backed up right to the Bluegrass Parkway. The spot was lined with trees except for one small opening. When they got closer to the opening, they saw that there had been freshly cut limbs taken off of the trees, almost as if for someone to be standing on the bluegrass to see directly into Tommy's farm. It was like the shooter did this so that they could have had a clear shot to Tommy. Police's theory was that someone lay await on the Bluegrass Parkway waiting for Tommy to show up on the farm. They sat and waited until they had a clear shot, and they took it. Police thought as soon as the assailant shot Tommy, they had an exit strategy because their car was on the bluegrass. They got back into their car and took off, never to be seen. Sherry, the Ballard family, and the entire community of Bardstown pretty much came to the same conclusion as to why Tommy would have been shot. If you shut Tommy up about Crystal, then maybe it would all go away. Since he was so vocal about Crystal and her disappearance, he was the driving force behind it all. If you got rid of him, then that slimmed the possibility of whatever happened to Crystal being exposed. At the Ballard family farm and the exact location of where Tommy was gunned down, the family put up a memorial. It has a cross with a light shining on it that you can see from the bluegrass. Leaving behind a treasure trove of information of all things regarding Crystal's case, Sherry had to make a decision. What was she going to do with this information? That's when she started working with private investigators and gave them the information with one contingency. They can look through anything, they can make copies of anything, but that box was not going to leave her residence. Overwhelmed with the amount of information that was in this box, investigators weren't really sure where to start. They found surveillance video from a local Walmart on July 3rd. In the video, you can see Crystal going up to the checkout lane with her kids around 4:45, check out and leave. An eyewitness reported that they had seen Crystal arrive at her residence around 5 p.m. where she got out of the car and was carrying groceries inside. But this was not the last reported sighting of Crystal. The last person that had seen Crystal alive was her boyfriend, Brooks Houck. Brooks and Crystal had first met when Crystal was going through a separation with her previous husband. She was a newly single mom and she needed to find a place to stay. She ended up renting a home from Brooks Houck. The Houck family was a very well-known name in the community for doing development and construction and rental properties. Since Crystal was already in a vulnerable spot, she felt like she could really trust Brooks. It seemed like Brooks really had his stuff together, which with Crystal's previous relationships wasn't always the case, so she really started to like him. Additionally, Brooks had actually run for sheriff in the preliminary election in 2014. After Crystal had been renting from Brooks for a while, she really started to feel like she knew him and they started going out on dates. Shortly thereafter, things got pretty serious. Crystal was bringing in 4 children from previous relationships into this new relationship with Brooks. It didn't take long for Crystal to become pregnant with her 5th child, Eli, and Brooks was the father. Crystal's family and the community described Brooks as being a great father to Eli. It seemed like he really loved him and took really good care of him. Crystal also never left Eli's side. She was with him 24/7. On the other hand, Brooks wasn't quite as welcoming to Crystal's other 4 children as she had hoped that he would have been. He had a hard time after Eli was born treating these kids the same way with the same love and care that he did with Eli. He did things like go to the grocery store with the family and Crystal, but he would only buy groceries for Eli and told Crystal that if the other 4 kids needed anything from the grocery, she was responsible for providing that for them. That's when Sherry said that her red flags started going off and that this Brooks guy might not seem all that he's cracked up to be. Sherry describes meeting Brooks for the first time. She had invited Brooks and Crystal over for dinner and made a home-cooked meal for them in hopes to impress him for Crystal. She said that everybody got along, and as a matter of fact, Crystal and Brooks and Tommy and Sherry sat at the kitchen table for hours just talking, and that became a pretty common occurrence at the Ballard house. Crystal and Brooks would frequently come over to the Ballard house to eat dinner and just hang out and talk about the nuances of life. Sherry said they really welcomed Brooks into their family and felt like they really cared about him and treated him really well. He was reported on July 7th in a news conference from the sheriff that he was being completely cooperative and as helpful as he could be in providing any information leading to the whereabouts of Crystal. Although she had been told and it seemed like Brooks was being cooperative with police, Sherry never kept it a secret that as soon as Crystal went missing, she wanted to talk to Brooks. After all, Brooks was the last person to have reportedly seen and talked to Crystal before she disappeared. Not only was Sherry and the Ballard family vocal about wanting to talk to Brooks, they were pretty vocal about the fact that they thought that Brooks might have something to do with her disappearance. July 5th, the Sunday after Crystal had gone missing, Tommy and Sherry were on their way to file the missing persons report. On their way there, Sherry sees Brooks sitting in his vehicle. So she gets out of her car and she approaches him. Sherry starts walking up to Brooks' car and he rolls down his window. She asks him if he had talked to Crystal. He said no. She asked if he had seen Crystal. He said no. She asked him if he knew where Crystal was, and he said no. She asked if they had gotten into any kind of an argument. He said no. Sherry asked where Eli was. Brooks said that her grandson was in the back seat. She peeked back there and she saw him. As if fear and dread wasn't already present for Sherry, as soon as she saw Eli without Crystal, she knew that she wasn't coming back. Brooks never had Eli alone, and Crystal never did not have Eli. Sherry tells Brooks that she's on her way to file a missing persons report. That's when Brooks looks at Sherry, stone cold face, and says, "That's what I think you should do." As if talking about somebody that he had never met before, talking about somebody that he did not care about. He never offered to go with her. He never acted alarmed or upset in any way that Sherry could see. A couple days later, on July 9th, the Nancy Grace Show covers the case. Nancy Grace has Brooks on the phone and she's asking him for his version of events.
Brooks Houck is with us. So Brooks, you go to bed and she's still playing games on her phone. The next morning around 8 o'clock, you notice that she's missing. Did you report her missing?
No, ma'am.
Why?
That is a great question and one that I definitely want to hit the public and the media. I was not in the least little bit alarmed in any way, shape, or form. We have had a stress relationship at times, and one of the ways that Crystal has always chose to cope or to deal with that is by going to a young woman's named Sabrina, that is her cousin, her dad's brother's daughter, whom she's very close to. She spent the night there on several occasions.
When you say several, do you mean 1, 3, 20?
In the neighborhood of 4 to 6.
Once the Nancy Grace Show airs, Sabrina is completely blindsided that her name has just been aired on national TV saying that Crystal was at her house. She said that yes, there had been a select couple of times when Crystal and Brooks were fighting that Crystal would come over to her house. She said that during the 3-year duration of Brooks and Crystal's relationship, that Crystal had come over there probably about 2 times because of them fighting. She said the first time she did this, she only stayed over there like an hour, and then the next time that she did this, she stayed there for a tops of like 2 hours, and it was definitely never an overnight thing. July 5th, Sabrina said that she woke up at about 9:30 and had a text from Brooks. It said, "How are you doing?" And she thought, well, that's kind of strange because Brooks never just texted her like that. He followed up with another text that said, "Have you seen Crystal?" And she responded back and said no. She just assumed that maybe they had gotten into an argument and he was trying to track her down. Fast forward that day to about 12:30 in the afternoon, and Sabrina gets a call from Crystal's family asking if she had seen Crystal. That's when she decided that she was just going to call Brooks and see what the heck was going on. Brooks picks up the phone and he says, "Hello." And she says, "What is going on?" And he said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "Where is Crystal?" He said, "Well, Friday night we went to the farm and then we came back home and I immediately went to bed, but she was laying next to me playing games on her phone." Sabrina asked him where Eli was, and he said, "Well, I have Eli." Like an echo of what Sherry said, Sabrina said as soon as she found out that Eli was alone with Brooks and Crystal didn't have him, she became teary-eyed because she knew that something was wrong. Since Brooks was cooperating with law enforcement at the time, he agreed to come into the Nelson County Sheriff's Department to meet with Detective Snow to take a videotaped and written statement.
All right, I'm going to take a minute here and read through your statement, if that's all right.
Yes.
Get an idea. You might have answered some of my questions already. So,
But I did, I was trying to cover as much as I could. If my writing's not real legible, you just ask me and I can clarify it real quick for you.
just so I'm clear on it,
All right.
you got home at somewhere between 5 and 5:30, probably closer to 5, right?
Yes, sir.
So she gets home about 5:15. You get back from the store. You all are there from, let's say, 5:30 to 7 o'clock together, the four of you. You ate dinner at home, I think you told me last time.
Yeah, we didn't fix nothing. I don't know what we ate. We didn't fix nothing fancy.
Right, sandwiches.
Whatever we did.
And then you get to the farm around, best I can figure out by the time frame on the video, is about 19 minutes after 7. So you're actually there, roughly about 7:20. So.
Okay.
The Houck family farm is about 10 to 15 minutes away from where Crystal and Brooks were living at the time. Brooks' mother is the one that lives on the farm.
Did you burn anything Friday night when you were out there?
Yeah, yes, it's not a I don't want the stuff piling up to the moon. I always light a fire.
All right, so you guys you've taken your walk. The fire is down, maybe not out, but it's down enough, and you're leaving. And it looks, again, looking at the video, looks like it's about 5 minutes till midnight.
All right.
That's to me, and I've got a couple of kids, but everybody parents a little differently. To me, it seems a little late to be out on the farm with a 2.5-year-old.
Basically, what Brooks had just told Detective Snow was that Crystal, Brooks, and the baby were at the farm in the cold, in the middle of the night, pitch black, and it was raining, to go feed the cows and to light some stuff on fire. As the interview pushes on, Brooks is seen kind of getting frustrated and irritated and accusing the detective of this being very silly. He proclaims that he's innocent and kind of implies that he's ready for this interview to end.
So you get up between 6 and 7, and where's Eli at when you wake up?
He's next to me.
He's in the bed with you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you get up. Does he get up with you?
He's still asleep whenever I get up, but I go to the bathroom and all that kind of stuff, and he's still sleeping there on the bed.
And so when you wake up, he's there, but Crystal's not.
She's not.
Okay. And so did you try to call her, or?
Yes, I noticed that she wasn't there. I didn't know exactly what to think. I don't know what time I called her. Yes, I called her that morning.
I mean, did you call her before you left the house to go to the
I
farm?
don't remember what time I called her. So
Well,
do what you got to do. I'll do whatever I can. But this is starting to get silly. I don't need an attorney. I haven't asked for an attorney. I don't need none of that. I'm innocent. I'm willing to talk to whoever. But this to me is really starting to get silly. So I'm extremely upset. I'm hurt over it. I try to put on a tough shell and a bubble, and move forward. It's extremely difficult to get up in the morning and push on and look at Eli and know that here I've got a million things going on that I have to get done. And then who's going to suffer? He is. And it's not right. I'm ready to hire an auctioneer to sell all this stuff so I can be there for him like Chris.
I think we left off around about Saturday morning. So you guys got up, and she wasn't there. So you and Eli got ready and went to the farm. And was your mom there Saturday? Do you remember?
I didn't stop at the house up there either that morning.
Any idea how long you were out there? Saturday?
It was a good, usually on Saturday I'm not in any kind of a rush because I try to take, I usually try to take it easy on Saturday.
Do you any idea how many times you've called Crystal at this point? By the time you went from getting up Saturday morning until you were going to the family
I know I called her back around maybe noon again the second time, and I don't know what the exact time I called her after that, but I know that sometimes in the past, if I called her to blow her phone up, it made it worse.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I've just called periodically, and I found that she doesn't take as much offense to that. You know, if you're just disrespectful to them, especially if somebody's mad, it just makes it worse. To
right.
keep calling them. I wasn't even alarmed. I was for sure the girls were doing this to me on purpose.
So you and Eli go to bed Saturday night. You get up normal time Sunday morning. Do y'all go to church?
No, sir.
Okay.
Didn't go to church. But on Sunday, I don't remember what we did Sunday.
I guess the biggest problem that I have is that most women are not going to walk away from their purse and their cell phone in the car.
I agree with you.
You know what I'm saying? If she were going to walk to go find help or something, she would take her phone even if it was dead. She wouldn't. My wife wouldn't leave her purse anywhere for any reason. So I can't figure why she would walk away from the car and leave the purse there. When we took the bloodhounds up there, the lady commented that it was though she wasn't even there. I mean, they had her things that you provided us for sin, and they said it was as though she was not even there. I can't explain that. I don't understand what that means. I don't know why. If it's her car and she leaves in it sometime Friday night, why does it appear to the dogs that she's not even there?
I agree with you.
Towards the end of his interview, Brooks is interrupted by a phone call. He asks the detective if he can take the call, and the detective says, sure, go ahead. Detective Snow sits there and listens to the one side of this conversation, and it's clear to him that whoever is on the other line of the phone call with Brooks is ordering him to end this interview for whatever reason.
So I guess where I go from here, we're still getting video from different places, you know, that along that route.
Can I get this?
Sure.
Hello? No. I'm up here. I know that you didn't know. I'm up here in this interview with the Detective Snow. I've been up here a good little while. I'm filling out this statement here and everything. Are you telling me that's what I need to do? I know that. But the way that I look at it is, I'm innocent. I ain't done nothing wrong. Well, you know, I know you told me innocent people have got jammed up, but if you're telling me to leave, I'll get up and leave. If you want me to. I know I'm going through a lot, but I'm trying to get this guy to help me. I don't think she's ran off with some other guy. I don't believe that. You can't make me think that. No. Yeah, so do I. I'll do exactly what you're telling me to do right now. You want me to get up and leave? Man, I don't think these guys. I don't think these people are rather vindictive just to skin me for no reason. Man, this is not their family. This is not. All right, thank you. He thinks y'all are gonna fuck is what he thinks.
I don't know who he is.
Nick, my brother.
Did you want to go here?
No, I know that, but I'm not. He just said just to keep sitting up here, to give a statement, do an interview, whatever I got to do it. But he said, darn, just to keep just letting them just beat you to death over this right here. Just ask what you got to ask and let you know.
The person who had called Brooks during this interview was Nick Houck, and that is Brooks's brother. At the time, Nick was employed as a police officer with the Bardstown Police Department. Right after the phone call between Nick and Brooks ends, the interview is concluded and Detective Snow and Brooks are seen leaving the interrogation room. A quick note about some inconsistencies that Brooks has. During the interview with Detective Snow, he keeps saying that Crystal would run off for a day or a day and a half, and then she would come back after she had cooled off. He also said that he wasn't going to blow Crystal's phone up because in the past, when they were arguing, that he had done that and it had only made the situation worse, and Crystal had gotten more upset when he did this. But at no point in the interview or to anybody else did Brooks ever say that the two were in an argument. And as a matter of fact, he told Sherry that they had not had an argument. As far as Brooks' story went, all was well the night that they went to bed, and then he woke up and she was gone. The day after Brooks' interview, Detective Snow calls Nick Houck and asks him if he would be willing to come down to the station for an interview. Nick basically tells Detective Snow no. He said that he was really busy at the time and that he didn't have any information other than what Brooks had already told Detective Snow and didn't feel like he would be of any benefit to the investigation. He flat out just refused to cooperate or speak with the Nelson County Sheriff's Department. The Nelson County Sheriff gets in contact with the police chief of Bardstown. He tells the chief that Nick isn't really cooperating, and that's when the police chief calls Nick into his office. He tells Nick, hey, look, man, you're wearing my badge, you're wearing my uniform, and your conduct is a direct reflection of this department. He gives him a very direct order that he will be cooperating with the Nelson County Sheriff's Department. Approximately 10 days after Crystal had gone missing on July 15th, Nick has an interview with the Kentucky State Police.
And your brother's name is Brooks, is that right?
Yeah, Brooks Houck.
Did you make a phone call to him when the SO was interviewing him?
Yes, I did.
And what did you say to him after when you said he'd been here for a couple hours? What was?
I just asked him. I said, "What the hell's going on up there? They're asking the same questions over and over, trying to trip you up. What's the deal?" And he said he was given a detailed statement or whatever. I said, "Well, that's fine. Just at a time like this, things are stunning. Just you got to protect yourself while you cooperate. Just kind of."
What did you do after you got off the phone with him?
I really don't know.
Do you remember going out to the farm the evening of July the 8th?
I don't, but I was very easily could have been out there.
That was incidentally the same night that your brother was. I think it's the same night your brother was interviewed by police.
Yeah, Wednesday, July 8th.
So it would be possible that y'all were out at the farm together that night. You just don't remember
You
specifically.
saying the 8th?
Yeah.
Could have been.
after that phone call, within 2 hours, both of y'all were driving to the farm on the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we know all that. There's no debate about that. We know that.
Mm-hmm.
What we need to know is why y'all both went down to the farm. Because I know it's going to be hard for you to remember a week ago, but I can remember a week ago if I'm thinking about a conversation I had with my brother and something like this going on. This doesn't go on all the time, so I mean, we're going to call it like it is.
Mm-hmm.
Is it you don't want to remember, or can you remember?
I can't remember.
Okay. Because this is what's happened. You made a phone call. He was up here. Within 2 hours of him leaving here, both of y'all were on the road, on the way to the farm, and the camera shows that.
Mm-hmm.
Time and date stamped. Phone call. Time and date stamped. You're out there. What went on while you were out there at the farm?
Yeah, if I knew, I'd tell you. I mean, I wish I could give you a detailed written statement. I don't know.
We know you arrived together and you left together. We know that.
Which kind of leads us to the issue with the cruiser here. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We got some issues.
Okay.
Okay.
You're aware that when the cruiser was taken from you, that it was actually taken to the Kentucky State Police Forensic Central Laboratory.
That's what I assumed, keeping that down.
Okay. So why it's at the lab? They have you ever heard of luminol? You ever been in any kind of criminal investigation?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Do you know what luminol is used for?
To find blood.
Okay. Or other
Bodily fluids.
bodily fluids.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So we all excrete bodily fluids, sweat, vomit, anything, saliva. All that is what would fluoresce. Why would your trunk look like a Smurf if they sprayed it? Why would it fluoresce?
I mean, it looked like Chernobyl. There's a couple spots in your trunk in that blanket. Just lit up like Chernobyl.
Why would that?
There's not going to be any blood in the trunk.
Okay, well, I did not say blood. I'm talking about other bodily fluids.
I don't have blood. There shouldn't be any bodily fluids in the trunk.
I mean, there's only one way bodily fluids can get into a trunk. That's if a body's nearby, right?
That's what I would assume.
Okay. So why would that be if that blanket, when they looked at it at the lab?
I've got no explanation for that. I don't have. None whatsoever.
Is there any reason that her DNA is going to come back in your trunk?
I'm 100% certain it won't. You're dead in the water. No way.
What about on that blanket?
No way.
Any hairs, fibers?
No
anything
way.
like that?
No way.
I mean, here's what we think happened. We think that your brother is a good guy, but we all have times where something just happens. All right, he probably found out that some other police officer or some other person in the town was cracking Crystal, and your brother found out about it and confronted Crystal about it. And when he did, he probably tried to maybe do something to her as far as making her understand that wasn't going to fly with him.
That didn't happen.
And then after that point, maybe it went just a little bit too far. And when it went just a little bit too far, he couldn't turn back time. And when he couldn't turn back time, who's he going to reach out to? But the one person that he trusts and knows that would help him out, and that would be you. And at that point, Nick, that's when you had to actually do something that you're ashamed of and that you're not proud of, and you blocked it from your memory because you are ashamed of that. And because you're a good person, you actually have feelings, you block that out in your head. And when you block that out in your head, that's why you're having a problem remembering this stuff.
But no, it didn't happen that way. It didn't.
Okay.
How do you know it didn't happen that way?
Nick, you can't remember what happened.
Well, he's saying Brooks did it, and I was in on it. There's no way.
Apparently, police had found out that shortly after that phone call, when Nick had called Brooks during Brooks's interview, the pair were seen on camera getting into the car together and driving out to their family farm. They knew this because Nick actually drove his police cruiser to the family farm with Brooks. It seems like Brooks and Nick both coincidentally have no recollection of any real details of the day or the days leading up to or shortly after Crystal's disappearance, other than they were innocent and they didn't do it. A few days later, Kentucky State Police ask if Brooks and Nick will come in for a polygraph. Brooks takes his polygraph and his comes back as inconclusive, which Polygraphs don't really stand up very well, and they're kind of known as like taboo, wacky science, but nonetheless, it doesn't really give them any insight as to if he knows anything or not. After Brooks, Nick takes his polygraph. He's seen in an interrogation room with the examiner, and he is clearly getting emotional and very upset about his results.
I've had a chance to review your charts on both tests. That first test, you did not pass the test, and it's pretty clear to me that you haven't told me the complete truth today. And the questions you're having a problem with are questions about Crystal, and in particular, the one about whether or not you know where she is right now. And it's no longer a matter of wondering, do you know anything about what happened? We're past that now. What are the questions? Do you know where Crystal is right now? Are you hiding any information about what happened to Crystal? Okay. You didn't tell me the truth on both of those questions. So the cat's out of the bag as far as your guilty knowledge of what happened here. You can deny, that's fine. That's what people do. It's will. That's what you've done at this point.
Man, let me just cut you off. I mean, do we need to take this any further?
I would like to take it to the truth. That's the whole reason we're here.
Is the test though? I mean, you're talking crazy.
Well,
I mean, you're talking crazy.
Well, you haven't been completely truthful about things. Not just kind of, you haven't been completely truthful about a couple of
I've been 100% truthful.
Listen to what I'm saying.
You listen to what I'm saying. I've been 100% truthful.
Why are you yelling at me?
Well, because you're telling me I'm lying, and I know I'm not. I know the truth, And I've been 100%
You
honest
know the truth.
with you, the grand jury, and everybody else I've spoken
No,
with.
you haven't. Here's what I'm getting. We just said.
Yes, I have.
No, you haven't.
I most definitely have. And if you don't want to believe it, that's your issue. It's not mine.
It's not just me. I showed you.
Dude, I don't give a goddamn what your fucking computer said. Okay?
I think you do.
I'm telling you that I have been 100% honest with you.
Is this how you act? Does this act this way towards Crystal?
When somebody... Is this how I act toward Crystal?
Yeah.
I act toward people that accuse me of lying when I'm not lying.
Did she
That's
accuse
how
you
I
of
act.
lying?
No, I didn't know Crystal.
Then why are you getting so angry?
Because you're calling me a fucking liar.
No,
That's
I'm
why.
just calling you a liar.
Okay?
I'm not cussed you.
I don't like it when people call me a liar.
My point in that isn't.
And I don't know what you're saying. I don't know what you've heard, but I'm just telling you, I didn't do it. I don't know nothing about
You
it.
did.
I don't know anything about it. My brother, and I can tell you, I know him well enough. He didn't do it. It's just the way it is. I mean,
Have you ever known somebody that you said wouldn't do something, and it turns out they did?
I'm sure I have, but it wasn't my brother.
That's right. So you're choosing to believe.
Because I know him real well.
I understand.
Yes,
Well, look,
yes, I am. He would not have done that.
But what you're saying is you believe him at the end of the day.
Well, it's not that I believe him because I haven't questioned him about it. I haven't.
Why would?
Because I know him well enough. I don't have to ask him that question.
We'll step back out. We'll grab Ryan here, and I'm assuming we'll get you back to work here.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Appreciate you coming in.
All right.
After the polygraph and the meeting between the examiner and Nick, the sheriff contacts the police chief of Bardstown again and is just extremely irate and frustrated over the conduct of Nick Houck. Nick was being completely uncooperative. On October 16th, 2015, the sheriff holds a news press conference. He announces that although they don't have a body for Crystal, she is presumed dead. At the same press conference, they officially name Brooks Houck as the primary and only suspect in her disappearance. Nick Houck was also fired from the Bardstown Police Department for his interference with the investigation of the case. He had completely disregarded the orders from his superiors to cooperate with the investigation. Although Nick had very clearly broken the law and interfered with an ongoing investigation as a law enforcement officer, he was never really held responsible for breaking the law. His only real punishment was that he got fired from the police force. The years following Crystal's disappearance, the community and Sherry Ballard lined the streets with signs indicating that they wanted justice for Crystal, and there were even some signs that directly called out Brooks and Nick and the Houck family, saying that they were directly involved with her disappearance. That's when the signs mysteriously started vanishing. Devastated by the news that these signs were disappearing, it was heart-wrenching when Sherry found out that the signs that had gone missing were located and they were completely destroyed. July 29th, 2017, there was an arrest made of a Crystal Maupin, and she was arrested for being caught stealing the crystal signs from a storefront that was located right down the road from the Ballard's house. Sherry said that when she found out who was behind stealing these signs, that she was not surprised in the least bit. Crystal Maupin was the new girlfriend of Brooks Houck. And might I just say, it's kind of weird that this guy has a thing for crystals with blonde hair. With the case back in the media, the family hoped that this new development would push the case further along, despite Kristen Maupin making this look even more incriminating for Brooks. Nothing was done. It felt like that no matter what happened, that anybody could get away with anything and they were never going to be held accountable for it. Anytime that Brooks was approached for an interview or a comment by journalists or the media, he seemed to give the same cliche answer to them all. He directs anybody that asks him something about the case to speak with Sherry Ballard. He also seems to make a dig at her by saying that she would really love the publicity. He then ends the conversation by thanking them so much for their concern and then hangs up on them. Since Brooks's new girlfriend was arrested and Brooks was named the suspect for Crystal's disappearance, the family was waiting all these years on pins and needles, just waiting for Brooks to be arrested for her disappearance. But that day never came. Fast forward to several years later, still no answers. Doesn't seem like there's been any kind of real progress made. July of 2020, there were female human remains discovered near the Nelson County line. Hopeful that this new lead may lead to some answers for Crystal, the Ballard family and the entire Bardstown community held their breath while the remains were sent off for testing in Virginia to confirm or not if this was Crystal. It wasn't until November of 2020 that another devastating blow hit Sherry and her family. The remains that were found in the summer that year were not Crystal, but there was still newfound hope that Crystal's case was going to be solved. August 6, 2020, the FBI announced that they were now going to be the prime investigators for Crystal Rogers. It's obvious that the FBI has so many more resources and manpower than that of a small town sheriff's department. During the same announcement, the FBI also releases information that they have created a website that is called the Crystal Rogers Task Force website. Immediately after the FBI took a hold of the investigation, they served out numerous search warrants. These search warrants were for Brooks's house and for Nick's cruiser. It was for the Houck family farm and their mother's house. And it also included a storage unit that belonged to Crystal that had not been accessed since before her disappearance. The FBI released a statement around this time with a reward for any information leading to Crystal's whereabouts. As I had mentioned in the beginning of this video, new developments are happening on this case right now. It is September 2021, and the FBI in the past couple of weeks announced that they were doing more searches to try and find information leading to Crystal. They have been doing a multi-day search in a neighborhood located in Bardstown. The neighborhood that they're looking into has several homes that Brooks was building or had just recently built at the time or around the time of Crystal's disappearance. They have narrowed their search down to 3 specific homes, all of which are owned by a rental company that is in Brooks' name. One home in particular seems to be a key point of interest. At this one house in particular, during the first couple days of the search, it seemed like investigators were digging in the area around the driveway. As the search continued, they were seen digging up almost the entire driveway, and then they were digging underneath the driveway. In addition to digging up this driveway, there have been numerous truckloads of gravel, dirt, soil concrete that have been taken away from this house and moved to a different location. They announced that as of right now, they are sifting through that soil to try and find anything of interest. The FBI did release a statement saying that they had found several key items of interest and that they will be sending those off for further testing. Local reporters asked Sherry how she was feeling about this new break in the case. She said that she thinks that 2021 is the year of justice for Crystal and their family. Sherry and the entire Bardstown community remain convinced that if they can find the answers of who did this to Crystal, that they will also find the answers for the other 4 unsolved murders that plagues their community. See, in the years leading up to Crystal's disappearance, Bardstown was hit with 2 more tragedies. Jason Ellis was a father, a husband, and was also employed by the Bardstown Police Department. He was described by his family as being the life of the party, always smiling and always joking. He had a love for baseball, actually being drafted by the Cincinnati Reds, and he was also a Little League coach in his community. In addition to his love for baseball, he also put his family and community first. He was what you would think of when you think of the ideal small town cop. Jason was also the only officer to have a partner as a canine. Figo was his canine partner. Drugs are pretty bad in this area, and Jason and Figo took their role as being a narcotics officer pretty seriously. Their hard work led to lots of arrests for narcotic offenses. At 2 a.m. Memorial Day weekend on May 25th, Jason Ellis calls in to end his shift. That particular night, Jason did not have Figo with him. Jason's regular police SUV was actually in the shop getting some maintenance done on it, and he was using a different vehicle. Out of safety concerns for Figo, Jason left him at home until he was able to get his SUV back from the shop. After calling out to end his shift, he starts heading home out of Bardstown and into the county where he lived. He was getting off the Bloomfield exit when he was rounding the curve and saw that there were tree limbs laying in the middle of the roadway. Jason stops his car on the ramp, exits his vehicle, and was going to go clear the debris that was lying in the road. That's when tragedy struck. He had bent over to pick up the branches and was in the process of standing back up when he was ambushed and assassinated. Someone that was driving on this roadway came up to the accident and called into 911. Struggling to make sense of the situation, Police Chief Rick McCubbins arrives on scene. He finds Ellis laying in the roadway with an apparent fatal gunshot wound, and he still had a tree limb in his left hand. He sees Jason's service weapon is still in his holster, never having a chance to bring it out and use it for self-protection. He had clearly been set up. The debris in the roadway was put there deliberately so that Officer Ellis would get out of his vehicle. Jason's wife, Amy, instantly knew something was wrong when she got a knock on the door in the middle of the night. She opens the door and it's another sheriff with tears in his eyes and a chaplain. She asks the officer, "Is he okay?" And through tears, the officer said, "No, he's not." The officer told Amy that Jason hadn't made it. Her mind is racing when she finds out what had happened, and she just could not think of anybody that would have wanted to hurt Jason. According to her, Jason didn't have an enemy in the world. On the other hand, Jason's sister said that she thought from day one that this was not random and that it was an inside job through law enforcement. She said that she thinks somebody is pulling the strings but didn't want to point the finger at anybody in particular. She doesn't ever elaborate on what her theory is as to why someone murdered Jason, but she remains firm in her belief that this was not random. The coroner conducts his autopsy and finds that Jason was met with a 12-gauge shotgun, and the suspect was standing on the overpass above the Bluegrass Parkway. He was also shot in the side where his bulletproof vest had a gap. How could somebody get the perfect shot in the right location, at the right time, at the right place? Somebody had to have known that Jason Ellis was going to be coming off that exit ramp, and they wanted him dead. Jason was the first and only Bardstown police officer that has been shot and killed in the line of duty. With no suspects, no motive, and no leads, Rick McCubbin makes a promise at a news conference saying that he will never stop looking for answers for Jason. Coincidentally, or maybe not, Jason Ellis and Nick Houck worked for the Bardstown Police Department. Rick McCubbin said that they would occasionally work the same shifts depending on what their schedule was, but they both worked the same hours. He said he didn't think that Nick was on duty the night that Jason was murdered. It was never brought to his attention that there was any animosity or tension between Jason Ellis and Nick Houck, and he said that they actually had two very different personalities. He said that Nick was very quiet and reserved, and that Jason was very loud and always joking around. The final Bardstown case that I'm going to be covering today is that of a mother and daughter. Kathy Netherland was 48 and her daughter Samantha was just 16 at the time of their death. Samantha was a high school student and was very excited about going to prom here soon, and she was known around to have a bright blue Mustang. Kathy worked at a local school and was a special education teacher. Along with Holly, Samantha's sister, Kathy's daughter, they lived in a cute, small little house that was located right off of a busy road in Bardstown. The prior year had been a tough one for the Netherland family because their father had actually passed away from colon cancer. On July 23rd, 2014, Holly, Samantha's sister, receives a phone call from her Aunt Stephanie. She tells Holly that Kathy and Samantha had not shown up for school that day, and that was pretty uncharacteristic for them, and was seeing if she knew what was going on or if she had talked to them. Holly gets off the phone with her aunt and starts to try to call her mom and her sister, but she can't get through. Shortly after that, Holly receives another phone call from a different aunt and says, "They're dead. They're both dead. Your grandfather walked into the house and he found them both dead." Holly said when she heard that, her mind is racing and she's trying to wrap her mind around how this could have happened. Initially, she did not think that anything nefarious had happened, and it was probably something like a gas leak or something like that. She shows up to her aunt's house and is met with law enforcement officers, and they want to talk to her. She starts putting the pieces together and realizes that this wasn't an accident, what had happened to her mom and her sister, and somebody had intentionally killed them. Police asked Holly if she knew of anybody that would want to harm her family, and she couldn't think of anyone. Over the course of the investigation for the Netherlands, Holly was questioned a lot. She said she wasn't really sure why police were focusing on her so much, but each time she was interviewed, she gained more information about what had happened. Police told Holly that they believed somebody had entered their residence and they first attacked her mom and then they went after Samantha. Samantha appeared to have had the most rage geared towards her. She had numerous broken bones in her face and her entire body was bruised. They told Holly that Kathy was located in the living room, which is closest to the front door of the house, and Samantha was found in the utility room, and it is believed that she was trying to get out of the house through the back door. Police told her that there were no signs of forced entry, but they believed that the person or persons who had done this had never been to their house before. Holly said that their house was actually built in 3 different stages before being completed. That meant that there were 3 outside doors located in each one of those sections of the house. The main door that the family and friends of the family used was located on the side of the house. The front door was located in the oldest part of the house, which had settled and made it quite difficult for them to open and close the door, so they'd never really used it very much. Because of this, that's how they knew that the assailant was not familiar with their house, because they had used the front door, which was the hardest one to open and the one that nobody that knew them would have used. KSP was assigned the investigation only about a year after Jason Ellis was murdered. As it stands right now, they're still unable to come up with any definitive motive for these killings. After the death of her mom and her sister, Holly moves out of Bardstown and says that she just wouldn't have felt safe if she would have stayed there. She said when she does go back, she feels like she has to look over her shoulder constantly. And that kind of seems to be a reoccurring theme among all of those that live in Bardstown. Everybody sleeps with one eye open, wondering who's next. It's never been proven that all of these cases are connected, but all of the community really believes that they are. They think that once you find the answers to one, that will lead you straight to the answers to all of them. One of the theories is that it is related to a drug ring or a cartel, but again, the FBI or law enforcement has never come out and said that there are any connections between these cases. Maybe 2021 is the year for justice in Bardstown, Kentucky. Hopefully this is the year that the residents can sleep with both eyes shut and not fearing and having to look over their shoulder. Hopefully this is the year that those responsible for creating this wake in the community are brought to justice and will be facing what they deserve. I'm so hopeful that this FBI search regarding the Crystal Rogers case will turn up something sometime soon and can hopefully shut the door, at least for Crystal's case, for Sherry and her family, if not answer the questions for the other 4 unsolved murders. I'm curious to hear what you guys think about what's going to happen, and if you all think that these cases are connected, feel free to leave a comment below and let me know what you think, and subscribe to my channel, and I will be back next week with a new case. Hope everybody has a good rest of your day. Thanks.